close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine a place where mountains rise so high that the clouds rest gently against their shoulders, where lakes lie so still beneath those peaks that the sky appears twice, once above you and once beneath your feet. Imagine villages where wooden balconies overflow with flowers, where church bells drift softly through narrow valleys, and where the scent of warm bread finds you before you even reach the bakery door. Now open your eyes, because this place is not a dream. This is Austria, a country where wild alpine landscapes and elegant imperial cities exist side by side, where ancient traditions breathe quietly inside modern life, and where every mountain path, every cobblestone street, every still lake at dawn carries a story waiting to be discovered. In this journey, we travel from the heart of the Alps to the grand boulevards of Vienna. From fairy tale villages hidden inside mountain valleys to cities where music once changed the course of history. So take a breath. Let the mountains rise around you. Our journey through Austria begins now. There is a particular kind of silence that exists only in the mountains. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of fullness, of wind moving through tall pines, of water running beneath old stone bridges, of a world that has been living quietly for a very long time. In Austria, the Alps shape almost everything. They shape the land, carving deep valleys and raising jagged peaks into the open sky. They shape the seasons, bringing long, snowy winters and short, flower-filled summers. And they shape the villages, small communities built carefully into mountain landscapes where life has followed the same gentle rhythm for generations. These villages are not simply beautiful places to photograph. They are places where traditions remain truly alive, where families still farm alpine meadows passed down through generations, where bakeries open before the sun rises, and where wooden houses have stood quietly against mountain winds for centuries without asking to be noticed. Among all the alpine villages of Austria, a few stay with you long after you have left. There are places in the world that stop you completely, not because they are loud or dramatic, but because they are so quietly perfect that your mind takes a moment to accept that they are real. Hallstatt is one of those places. The village rests gently along the western edge of a deep alpine lake, surrounded on all sides by steep mountain walls. Pastel-colored houses climb upward from the water's edge, their reflections stretching across the still surface of the lake each morning. A slender church spire rises from the center of the village. Narrow lanes wind between houses where wooden balconies overflow with flowers during the warmer months. Hallstatt is small. You can walk from one end to the other in under 20 minutes. Yet every single step feels like moving through a living painting. Early in the morning, when mist still drifts across the lake and the first light touches the rooftops, the village, falls into a silence that feels almost sacred. Only the soft sound of water against old wooden boats and the distant ringing of church bells breaks the quiet. But Hallstatt is not simply beautiful. It is ancient. People have lived here for thousands of years, drawn by the salt hidden deep within the mountains above the village. That salt shaped early trade routes across Europe and helped transform this small alpine settlement into one of the oldest continuously inhabited places in the entire region. The salt mines above the village still exist today, and walking inside them feels like stepping into a chapter of history that most of the world has forgotten. Today, visitors arrive from around the world to walk its narrow streets, sit beside the lake, and simply breathe. And if you visit, do yourself one favor. Arrive early, before the tour groups, before the noise. In those first quiet hours of the morning, Hallstatt belongs to no one and everyone at once. Now, here is a question for you. Hallstatt is often compared to Annecy in France, another lakeside village that feels too beautiful to be real. If you could visit only one, which would you choose? Let us know in the comments below. Just across the lake from Hallstatt lies Obertraun, quieter, less visited, and in its own way, just as breathtaking. From here, cable cars rise high into the Dachstein Mountains. As the valley falls away beneath you, forests slowly give way to rocky slopes, and then to glaciers that gleam beneath an open alpine sky. At the summit waits one of Austria's most famous viewpoints, the Five Fingers platform. 5 narrow walkways extend outward from the cliffside, suspended high above the valley floor. Standing there, with the Alps stretching endlessly in every direction and the lake shining far below, the scale of the landscape becomes almost impossible to hold inside your mind. And deep within these mountains lies something entirely unexpected: the Eisriesenwelt, which means the world of the ice giants. It is the largest ice cave in the world. Inside, narrow passages open into vast chambers, where towering formations of ice glow in shades of blue and white. The cold air bites at your cheeks. Your breath rises in small clouds, and the silence inside is so complete that it feels like the mountain itself is holding its breath. This is not a tourist attraction. This is the earth showing you something it has been quietly making for thousands of years. Hidden within the Tyrolean mountains lies Alpbach, a village that many Austrians quietly describe as the most beautiful in the country. And when you see it, you understand why. Unlike many alpine villages, Alpbach follows a strict architectural tradition. Every building maintains the same style: wooden balconies, carved timber facades, white plaster walls, and window boxes filled with flowers. The result is extraordinary. The entire village feels visually harmonious, as though it was designed as a single piece of art, rather than built over centuries by different hands. In summer, the meadows surrounding Alpbach turn into a sea of green and wildflowers. Cowbells drift across the hillsides. The air smells of cut grass and pine, and the mountains above the village hold their snow well into the warmer months. creating a contrast of white peaks and green valleys that feels almost theatrical. Walking through Alpbach, you get the sense that beauty here is not an accident. It is something the community has chosen, again and again, to protect and preserve. Small inns in the village serve hearty Tyrolean meals, thick soups, rye bread, aged mountain cheeses, and slow-cooked meats. Nothing complicated, nothing pretentious. Just honest food made from ingredients that come from the valley itself. In the far western reaches of the Salzburg region, tucked inside a high alpine valley, the Krimml Waterfalls fall in 3 great cascades across a drop that takes your breath before you even reach the base. The sound reaches you first. A deep, constant roar that grows louder with every step along the forest trail. Then, the mist finds you, cool and fine, settling on your skin and catching the sunlight in small rainbows that appear and vanish with every shift of the breeze. And then you see it. Water falling free through open air, crashing against ancient rock, rising again as white mist before the next cascade begins. The sheer volume of it, the sheer indifference of it to anything human, is humbling in the best possible way. Trails alongside the falls allow you to walk the entire length, from the thundering base to the quieter pools above. Each level reveals a different face of the same water. Violent, graceful, still, then violent again. After the walk, small cafes near the entrance serve simple alpine food. Bowls of warm soup, thick slices of bread with butter and cheese, and strong coffee. After an hour in the mist and the cold air, even the simplest meal feels like a gift. There are places that can only be reached on foot, and that effort, that slow climb through thinning air and widening views, is part of what makes them matter. Olpererhütte is one of those places. Sitting on a high ridge in the Zillertal Alps, this mountain hut overlooks a turquoise glacial lake, framed by jagged peaks on every side. The only way to reach it is to hike, several hours upward through alpine terrain, with the valley dropping further behind you with every step. A narrow suspension bridge leads to the hut itself, swaying gently above a rocky drop. Crossing it, you feel something shift, a small, clean kind of courage. From the terrace of the hut, the view is one of the finest in all of Austria. The glacial lake below holds a color that has no real name, somewhere between green and blue and something the mountains invented entirely on their own. People who make this climb rarely want to leave quickly. They sit. They eat simple mountain food, soup, bread, cheese, whatever the hut is serving that day. And they look out at a landscape that feels completely untouched by the speed of modern life. Above the Wolfgang Sea, Schafberg rises sharply into the sky. From its summit, the lakes of the Salzkammergut region scatter across the valleys below like pieces of a mirror dropped from a great height. Each one catches the light differently. Each one holds its own small world. The journey to the top is part of the experience. A historic rack railway, one of the oldest of its kind in Austria, climbs steadily up the mountain's face, moving slowly enough that you can watch the landscape change around you. Forest gives way to open alpine meadow. Meadow gives way to bare rock. And then the summit opens up and the world falls away in every direction. On clear days, you can see across multiple valleys, across multiple ranges, into a distance that has no clear end. This is the kind of view that reminds you why mountains have always made people feel something close to reverence. Hohenwerfen Castle rises from a rocky spur above the Salzburg Valley. Visible from the valley floor long before you reach it. Its towers have stood since the 11th century, through wars, through empires, through centuries of alpine winters. Standing beneath it, looking up at walls that have outlasted everything built around them, you feel the full weight of that kind of permanence. Hochosterwitz in Carinthia stands on a different kind of stage. A single solitary rock rises from flat farmland, and on its peak, the castle sits like something a child drew before learning that castles do not really look like that. "14 fortified gates line the winding path to the top, each one built as a separate line of defense. Walking through them one by one feels like passing through different layers of time. And Schloss Ort, built on a small island in the Traunsee, reaches its reflection in the water as naturally as it reaches the sky. Connected to the shore by a narrow wooden bridge, it is the kind of castle that appears in fairy tales. Not because it has been dramatized, but because it has not needed to be. Nearby inns around these castles serve meals that feel historically appropriate: roasted meats, bread dumplings, thick gravies, and sweet pastries that have been made in these valleys for longer than most nations have existed. For those who want Austria, completely raw and unfiltered, two landscapes stand apart from everything else. Gesäuse National Park in the Styrian Alps is a place of dramatic limestone walls, dense ancient forests, and the Enns River cutting cold and fast through the valley below. There are no crowds here, no cable cars, no famous viewpoints with viewing platforms, just the mountains doing what mountains do, standing still while everything around them keeps moving. The silence in Gesäuse is different from the silence of the villages. It is wilder, less comfortable, more honest. Wilder Kaiser in Tyrol offers something similar. Jagged peaks rising sharply above small alpine villages, their rock faces turning shades of orange and gold in the late afternoon light of autumn. Trails wind between them, some easy, some demanding, all of them beautiful. Small mountain huts scattered through both areas serve food made from local ingredients: herbs, cheeses, breads baked the same morning. Simple flavors that feel entirely right against such a backdrop. Austria's cities are not simply old. They are alive with their own history in a way that feels immediate rather than preserved. Walking through them, you do not feel like a visitor in a museum. You feel like someone who has arrived slightly late to a very long and very beautiful conversation, one that began centuries ago and shows no sign of stopping. The city sits in a narrow valley, and the Nordket mountain range rises so sharply above its northern edge that on clear mornings, the peaks seem close enough to touch from the old town streets. This is not a backdrop. This is a presence. Walking through Innsbruck's old town, the golden roof catches the eye immediately. Built for Emperor Maximilian I in the late 1500s, its gilded copper tiles have been reflecting alpine sunlight for more than 500 years. Cobblestone streets wind past Baroque facades, medieval towers, and small cafes where the smell of roasted coffee and warm pastry drifts into the street. In winter, the mountains above the city fill with snow, and the city itself turns golden with warm light. In summer, terrace tables fill with travelers eating Kaiserschmarrn, a torn, caramelized pancake dusted with powdered sugar that has been a Tyrolean staple for generations. While mountain shadows slowly crawl across the valley below, Innsbruck has hosted the Winter Olympics twice. But the mountains do not need the Olympics to be impressive. They were already there, long before anyone thought to build a city beneath them. Some cities are defined by their buildings, some by their rivers. Salzburg is defined by its music. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born here in 1756, in a house on Getreidegasse that still stands today. And while Mozart left Salzburg young and never truly returned, the city never stopped carrying him. His name is on chocolates, on concert halls, on street signs and cafe menus, not as commerce, but as genuine pride. But Salzburg is more than one composer. The city itself is Baroque, extravagant, confident, built to impress. Gilded church facades line narrow streets. The Salzach River catches the afternoon light and carries it through the city. And above everything, Hohensalzburg Fortress watches from its hill. One of the largest and best-preserved medieval castles in Europe, its stone walls unchanged in their essential form for nearly 1,000 years. Below the fortress, the old town moves with a kind of elegant energy. Local markets overflow with produce. Street musicians play in courtyards. And in the famous coffee houses, a Mozartkugel, a small chocolate ball filled with pistachio marzipan and nougat, invented here in 1890, dissolves slowly, while the aroma of freshly ground coffee fills the room. Now here is a question worth thinking about. Salzburg and Prague are often mentioned together as Europe's most beautiful small cities. If you could spend 1 week in only one of them, which would you choose? Tell us in the comments. Graz, the country's second largest city, spreads beneath Schlossberg Hill in the Styrian Plain. Its old town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a dense, layered collection of Renaissance courtyards, Baroque churches, and narrow streets that open unexpectedly into wide, sunny squares. From the clock tower at the top of the hill, the red rooftops of the city spread below you in a panorama that looks more like a painting than a photograph. University students fill the cafes of Graz with a particular kind of energy: young, curious, unhurried. Local markets sell seasonal produce from the surrounding Styrian countryside. Linz, on the Danube, has reinvented itself. Once an industrial city, it now holds a remarkable balance between its Baroque old town and the Ars Electronica Center. A museum built entirely around the intersection of art, technology, and human curiosity. Walking along the riverfront at sunset, with the old town behind you and the modern museum ahead, you feel the city's two selves existing peacefully beside each other. Linzer Torte, a cinnamon and jam pastry considered one of the oldest cakes in the world, is served in almost every cafe here. Bregenz sits on the eastern shore of Lake Constance, where Austria meets Switzerland and Germany at the water's edge. Every summer, the city hosts its famous festival on a floating stage built directly over the lake. The mountains behind, the water in front, and an opera performance in the middle, it is one of the most extraordinary cultural experiences in Europe. Freshly caught lake fish served with crisp local white wine makes dinner here feel like a complete evening. Klagenfurt, on the western shore of the Wörthersee, carries a Mediterranean lightness that surprises most visitors. Sunlight glances off pastel-colored buildings. A famous dragon fountain watches over the central square. The dragon said to have once lived in the marshes before the city was built. It is the kind of detail that tells you a city knows how to keep its stories alive. Between the towns of Melk and Krems, the Danube moves through a valley that has been shaped by water, wine, and time. Terraced vineyards climb steep hillsides above the river. Golden apricots, the valley's most famous fruit, hang heavy on trees in summer. Medieval castles perch on cliffs above the water, and the river itself moves with a quiet authority through it all, as it has for centuries. The Wachau Valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But the designation feels secondary to the experience of actually being here, moving slowly along the river by boat, watching the landscape unfold with each bend, a hidden village, a ruined castle, a vineyard catching the late afternoon sun. You understand why people have been living in this valley for thousands of years. Melk Abbey commands the valley from its rocky promontory above the river. Its Baroque facade and towers are visible from the water long before you reach it. Inside, a library holds thousands of manuscripts, some of the oldest in the German-speaking world. Standing in it, surrounded by knowledge that has survived wars and floods and the slow collapse of empires, you feel something quiet and profound. Local wineries and taverns throughout the valley offer the fruits of this land. Apricot dumplings, rolled in buttered breadcrumbs, freshly baked rye breads, aged cheeses, and the valley's signature Gruner Veltliner white wine. Meals here carry the taste of the river, the soil, and the sun. Every great journey deserves an ending that matches its beginning. Vienna is that ending. The city arrives slowly. Wide boulevards lined with monumental buildings, the scale of everything just slightly larger than expectation. This is what the center of one of the greatest empires in European history looks like when it decides to stay. The Ringstrasse is the city's spine, a grand circular boulevard built in the 19th century to showcase the empire's ambition and refinement. Walking it, you pass the State Opera House, the Kunsthistorisches Museum, the Parliament Building, the Hofburg Palace. Each one is a statement. Together, they are a conversation about what power looks like when it is also in love with beauty. The center of the old city, St. Stephen's Cathedral, rises from the surrounding streets like something that arrived from a different scale of existence. Its south tower reaches toward the sky. Its black and gold tiled roof catches the light in ways that change completely with the hour. Inside, the cathedral is cool and dim and very old, a space that has been absorbing the prayers and footsteps of a city for more than 600 years. Vienna's coffeehouse culture is unlike anything else in Europe. These are not cafes. They are institutions, places where writers, artists, philosophers, and ordinary people have been sitting, thinking, arguing, and reading newspapers for centuries. Vienna is not a city you see. It is a city you absorb, slowly, over days, letting it reveal itself to you in layers. Here is a final question for you. Vienna and Paris are two of the most celebrated cities in the world. Both shaped European culture, art, and history in ways that still echo today. Which city do you feel more drawn to, and why? Leave your answer below. We would genuinely love to know. What Austria leaves behind. From misty alpine lakes to thundering waterfalls. From ice caves to sun-warmed vineyards. From quiet mountain huts to the grand corridors of imperial palaces. Austria is not one thing. It is a country that holds its wildness and its elegance in the same open hand, where a glacier and a concert hall can both make you fall silent for the same reason. Because some things simply exceed what words are built to carry. The mountains here are timeless. The cities pulse with a history that never fully settled into the past. And the food, from a bowl of soup eaten in a mountain hut to a plate of schnitzel in a Vienna cafe, carries the memory of the land it came from. This journey has moved from the stillness of alpine meadows to the weight of imperial stone. And somewhere in between, if you have been watching closely, Austria has offered you something that the best places always offer. A reminder that the world is larger, older, and more beautiful than the part of it you live in every day. thank you for watching. If this journey moved you even a little, leave a comment, share it with someone who loves to travel, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. The mountains are still there, and so are we.